Welcome to March Madness. If you didn't do well in the NCAA tournament pool, then here's your chance to redeem yourself. Answer this trivia question. What does the number 47 represent? If you guessed 47 days left with students, you were correct. Today's objectives are to review the educator effectiveness deadlines, to review today's schedule of events. We're going to look ahead to the last 2 months and what to expect for summer professional development, and then we'll have a short activity related to one of our district focus areas. Today's focus will be on learning objectives. By now, you should have completed your mid-year PPG and SLO paperwork. You will be completing your SLO and PPG end-of-the-year report in May after you've collected your final set of data. Here's a quick review of today's activities. You should have already attended your staff meeting this morning, and you are now in your PLC team meeting until 9:45. You'll have 15 minutes to drive or move to the MASH Red White Theater and find a seat for today's keynote, Jim Harris. Jim will be talking about the effects of trauma on children. And if you're inspired by his talk, you can take in his optional seminar at Mays at 1:30. Here's a quick shout out to the MVP of the day, Shelley Waller. Shelley did all of the planning and organizing for today's speaker, including securing a sponsor so that Jim could come and speak to us and our community. A big shout out also to Aspirus for sponsoring Jim Harris. After the keynote, everyone is required to attend a seminar. Please check the list to make sure you know what you've signed up for and what you will be attending. After that, the afternoon is yours for lunch and working in your classroom. In less than 3 weeks, we will have another early release day. April 13th will be the normal 90-minute PLC. Due to the short turnaround, there will not be any seminars scheduled for that day. This will also give you additional time with your team to finish the end-of-the-year paperwork and to start planning for summer professional learning and next year. On May 17th, the first part of the early release will be with your team, and as always, we will convene to the Red White Theater for the last part of the time to celebrate our retirees. If you happen to know a retiring colleague, start thinking about ideas for an awesome send-off video. I'll be emailing you soon. And although it is still a little chilly outside, we must also be thinking ahead to summer. At the April Early Release Day, you'll be receiving a Summer Professional Development Survey. Please complete this so that I can create a schedule to fit your needs. And as always, I'll also be asking for teams to submit their ideas for team curriculum work. Due to the limited amount of funds available, these summer curriculum hours will only be given to groups of staff working together on a project. Today's instructional focus will be on communicating with students. More specifically, on quality learning objectives. As administrators complete walkthroughs of your instruction, they're not only looking to see if you've posted your objective, but if your students know what they're doing and why. Therefore, you may have witnessed them asking your students, "What are you learning today?" Overall, the majority of staff are now posting their objectives in their classrooms, and most often students are able to communicate what they are learning. So the next question is my learning objective a quality objective? Today we are going to review what makes a quality learning objective, and then we'll see if what you ask kids to do match with what you want them to do. Let's start with the learning activity. Stop the video for a moment and write down a learning objective that you've taught last week or that you will teach this week. The first test to a quality learning objective is if it answers these 4 questions. Is your objective linked to an agreed-upon standard? Is it worth knowing? Is it matched to your students, challenging and attainable? And is it able to be assessed? Stop the video a moment and either self-assess or pick a partner and assess each other's objectives on these 4 questions. The second test to a quality learning objective is to look how you've written it. Does your objective name an active performance? In other words, can it be measured? Does your objective use a strong verb, such as analyze, describe, practice, infer, and demonstrate, and avoid words like learn? Does it begin with students will, or you will, or I can? And is it kid-friendly? Stop the video again and assess the language of your partner's objective. Once you've evaluated your objective and found it worthy, it is very important to ask yourself, if students mastered my objective, what would it look like or sound like? For example, if I want my students to analyze, do my activities and assessment ask them to analyze? Stop the video again. Write down a quick list of activities and assessments that you did to have kids practice the skill and how you assessed that they mastered the skill. To demonstrate how objectives should match the activities, let's look at an example from Madeline Hunter from the book Skillful Teacher to see what it means to match or not match. So Madeline Hunter finds a kindergarten teacher holding her head amid a room that's a mess of paper and glue. There are mimeograph turkeys all around on which children have been pasting squares of colored tissue paper to make a Thanksgiving collage. Madeline asks, "What's been going on?" And the teacher says, "Well, it was an art experience for the kids." The exchange then continues. Madeline says, "Why did you go to the trouble of mimeographing the turkeys? Why not just give them a piece of paper and the tissue and let them be creative and express themselves?" And the teacher says, "It really wasn't that. It was really a lesson in eye-hand coordination." So Madeline says, "Well then, why didn't you have them outline the turkey? You can't tell whether they've stayed within the line or not when they've got them pasted all over the turkey." So the teacher says, "Well, it really wasn't that. It was a lesson in conservation." And Madeline says, "Conservation?" And the teacher says, "Yes, the kids have really been very wasteful of glue, so I was trying to teach them to put just a tiny piece of paste on." And Madeline says, "Then why didn't you give them a piece of glue or paper of glue and see how much of their turkey they could finish before they ran out of glue? You can't tell if there's a cup of glue under some of those turkeys." And the teacher says, "Oh, for crying out loud, can't kids just have fun?" And Madeline says, "Sure they can have fun. What do your kids like to do?" And the teacher says, "The thing they like to do best is just chase out on the school grounds." And Madeline says, "Well then why didn't you take the last half hour and go around, supervise them while they're being chased, and you wouldn't have this mess to clean up?" So the question is, did this teacher's activities match her objective? What could have helped this teacher's lessons? Stop for a moment and discuss. Like this teacher, many times we get caught up in the activities that we want our kids to do, or we just stop at the content we need to teach and ask content-based questions like we find at the end of the chapter. And sometimes we find a way to engage the kids, but the lesson lacks substance or deep understanding. That was the case when I was teaching English a few years ago. My principal had come in to observe my lesson where I was teaching a number of story terms. I had dressed up as a witch and was throwing terms in my cauldron to get kids' attention. Although it may have been exciting to watch, my principal asked me at the end of the lesson, "Will I go any deeper? Will the students practice using the terms?" I realized I had gotten caught up in involvement and coverage of terms, and I didn't realize until she pointed out that I never got past students being able to identify or define these terms. I had lost track of answering the mastery question. Do I know what the students should be able to know or do when the lesson is over? And was what I was doing in the classroom helping my kids learn the objective that I wanted them to learn? One final activity for today. Take a moment after this video and divide yourselves up into pairs, or if you're a small team, take turns, and talk to your partner or team about your objective and your activities and assessment of that objective. Do they all match? Does your objective go beyond coverage or involvement or activities in isolation? So happy March Madness, and we'll see you again in 12 more workdays. Until then, I challenge you to review your daily objectives. Are they worthy? And do they match what you and your students are doing in the classroom?